Well, ladies and gentlemen, for giving us the download on mastering Aerospike with Kubernetes Operator, I invite now on stage Ms. Srinidhi Koushik, Principal Consultant Aerospike APJ, onto the stage.
So today's topic is for folks who have already on Aerospike or looking forward to using Kubernetes to manage Aerospike successfully. So this is all about that particular topic. So first thing is a quick agenda of what we are going to follow through. This is a quick agenda. I'll just not go through this from a timing standpoint. So what we have right now, if you're facing any of these issues or any concerns related to running your Aerospike clusters manually, unable to deploy on time, finding scaling issues, the amount of effort that you're investing in upgrading is huge, or you're dependent on runbooks provided either by yourself or developed by Aerospike, or you're seeing something like your Kubernetes cluster is being managed by decentralized team, which in turn causes something like low engineer morale or non-adherence to standards. If any of these is what you're facing right now as of today, here's this subsequent slides which talks about how we can alleviate this problem. Now, from a consequence standpoint, we have seen that whenever these issues are being faced, this leads to something like missed SLAs, increased cost in managing your homegrown automation, as well as missed revenue opportunities because you're investing more time in doing mundane things like upgrading or maintaining your Aerospike, which should be given out for more innovative efforts. Now, this brings up to the next slide, what is AKO all about? So AKO, or Aerospike Operator, helps you to automate the deployment, management of Aerospike enterprise clusters on Kubernetes. Then why Aerospike AKO? Because this helps you to reduce the resource consumption, chances of error while you're managing these parameters, and makes your SRE lives easier. That is what AKO is here to help you out with. Now, this is a very simple view of how an architecture looks like, wherein on your right-hand side depicts the user. User provides the inputs to the CRD files, and we have a host of CRD files in our repository, which caters to each and every use case that you have in mind, right? The example that we are going to showcase is just for demo standpoint, but much more complex requirements can be managed, and a heavier Aerospike instance can be set up with minimal fuss. Now, from a CRD standpoint, is more of an YAML file that we have, which calls out the configurations associated with your Aerospike environment. And we have this Kubernetes Aerospike operator, which interacts with your Kubernetes API, and it helps you to do the next activity, which is to help you to horizontally scale, vertically scale, upgrade your Aerospike instances with no interference from the user, as well as to try changing parameters also, right? Which needs rolling restart of your environment. And all of this is happening, mind you, without any sort of downtime, right? That's the beauty of using AKO. Now, we are compatible with Amazon EKS, Azure Kubernetes Services, Google Kubernetes Services, and if you have an in-house Kubernetes setup, we are compatible with those as well. The same YAML file, the same yardstick holds good, except the parameters would change based on the Kubernetes setup that you have at your end. Now, this is just a small example of how configuration looks like and how complex an Aerospike environment would look over here on your right-hand side. So we have an operator connecting to your Kubernetes API. You have an option to capture your configuration maps. Secrets like TLS files or configuration files can be kept under this secret directory. In addition to it, we can also have Aerospike Prometheus exporter as a sidecar, which will help you to monitor these pods or clusters effortlessly. And mind you, this is a single pane of operating window. We don't have to have multiple operators. One operator manages the entire fleet of clusters that you have from an Aerospike standpoint. That's the beauty of AKO. Now, going to the demo.
So the intent of this particular demo is to
Yeah, let me give you a voiceover, makes it much more interesting. So what we are trying to do over here in this particular case is we have set up a GKE cluster on Google Cloud. So on your left-hand window, what we have done is, as you can see, we have installed Aerospike Operator, and this is a jump server on which we have Aerospike installed. And what we are trying to do in this particular case is there's a sample of the repository details that I was talking to you about, the GitHub link, which gives you these particular parameters. For example, what I've done is I've taken a YAML file called submit66.7x, wherein I am intending to run something like set up a cluster called Aero cluster with 3 nodes. There's a 3 pods that you see under the size. And what version? We are talking about 6.1.0.1 as a version. And this also contains a snippet of the storage class that we use. From a role-based access control, we have the users that has to be generated automatically. And finally, the Aerospike configuration on what sort of installation we want. In our case, what we have done is we have used something called memory size, a pure in-memory cluster, just for an example. Now, what I've done is I've just run the kubectl apply -f command. And if you can see here, it says cluster created. Please concentrate on your right-hand window. What we have done is we have just tried to access the 3 pods that we have set up is shown up over here. Now, these pods represents each and every pod that is associated with the Aerospike cluster. The reason being we had asked for 3 pods to be set up over here. Now, what we are trying to do here is to access it and show you that these environments can be accessed using the ACDM command, which acts like a client. If you're able to use this client, it's the same thing that goes with any other client, whether it's Java, Python, name it. We can connect to this particular environment using these commands. So this ASADM gives you the value. The admin user that we have set up as part of your role-based access control gives me access to it. And whatever we have set up as a YAML file gets set up as an environment. Aero cluster is my cluster name. E6.1.0.1 is my cluster value, and the cluster size being 3 right now. So this is just a first part of the story. Now, much more complex things. For example, you want to do something like an upgrade of an existing environment, and you don't want to spend most of the time. So what we have done right now is we are trying to upgrade this environment from 6.1 to 7.1, as well as to increase the size of the number of pods to 4. And we just go ahead to apply this particular value. And that is what is being showcased as part of this demo. And how seamlessly this gets migrated to the next, upgraded to the next version in a sequential fashion or a rolling fashion is what you will see on a window on the right-hand side. Again, we have applied the kubectl apply command with the new YAML file that we had right now. And that takes you to the next window. So what I've done is I've just copied the configuration to increase the value, and that's what you're seeing over there. And here's where we are applying the same YAML file that we had initially triggered. And if you see there, it's showing us configured. And that now we take you to the right-hand window, wherein we are doing something like an info network, which tells you what sort of build was installed over there. Now, if you can concentrate on this particular column over here, called the build migration, the build E610, that's what we started off. But what we have put up right now is 7.1. So what's going to happen over here? Now, one by one, you will see that each of these nodes will be brought down. We upgrade it, and we are glad to announce that we support something like mixed clusters, wherein we work with both 6.x and 7.x at the same time. So without any sort of downtime, in a rolling fashion, we are able to migrate from an older version to a newer version of Aerospike, and that's what you're seeing. The first one is already through. So it waits for the migration. Everything that you are expecting from an end user is automated as a best practice within the AKO. Now, if the first one is already done, then the second one will follow suit. And that's what you see by running the info network again. This takes a couple of seconds, or the time it takes would be the time for the migration to complete. So you'll see the second one going through right now for migration. It's up. We are left with a third one. So for the time being, we have just 2 of them already migrated. The third one will follow suit shortly. And the next step would be to increase the number of pods. Initially, we had given it as 3, and now it will get migrated. It will become 4 pods very shortly. See, this is the end result that you wanted. So seamlessly, without any sort of manual intervention, using the YAML inputs, that a single place from where you can run the entire upgrade process. And finally, the 4th node, as you can see, is being spun up. So this sort of automation is what you get using AKO. And every other best practices that we have has already been built into this particular tool. So this is about the demo. So first question that comes to your mind is, there are a lot of moving parts, right? Has this ever been tested by yourself or by any other client that you know of? So we are glad to announce that we have one of our key partners, which is Flipkart, who has been through this journey. And I think, is there folks from Flipkart who can raise their hands, please? Yeah, great. These are the wonderful champions, like 5-member superheroes who are managing somewhere close to 300 odd clusters with zero downtime. And the latest sales day, they were able to manage somewhere like 35 billion transactions over this particular 300 cluster with zero downtime. And that's the beauty of how simple is it and how effectively the team over here has been able to manage it. As well as we also have Criteo as well, which is another customer which has almost the same range. We have many more customers who have done this right now. And Aerospike has your back. So ultimately, we have our engineering team, which is all ears to see how best can we evolve this product further. So we have got excellent interactions with the individuals who are already using AKO, and we hear them to make sure that the subsequent releases has those meaningful features built in. So from a maturity model standpoint, where does Operator stand, right? From a maturity standpoint, we are at level 3, wherein we are working on creating something like a backup failure and recovery built into this particular AKO. And by end of this September, you should be able to see that these features will be there in AKO, number 1, as well as we are moving our sights into the next one, wherein we want to do deep insights on how do we metricize, how do we read these metrics, create alerts, meaningful alerts, and make sure that we process these logs, which in turn will lead to something like an autopilot mode, wherein you want to scale up much more effectively, automate the entire flow. All those things will be part of level 5. So that brings me to the next slide, which is the benefits of AKO. After seeing this right now, all the wonderful things that's moving around, you can make sure that you can have an automated deployment, scaling, and management much easier. That's number 1. Managed by the centralized team, just like Ash4 showcased by our colleagues over here. As well as it leads to higher engineering model, because 300, 400 odd clusters being managed by 5 individuals is not a joke, right? That these guys have been able to do that. And it leads to a higher engineering morale and adherence to standards. Being managed by a centralized team brings in something like an adherence, because they know what are the best practices that has to be involved. So they make sure that that is adhered to. And finally, every other thing has got a positive business impact, right? Like effort that they save over here can be channeled towards innovative efforts, which in turn leads to something like a dollar value. SLAs being met, like what's been showcased, and zero downtime is what you will definitely get from an Aerospike, which is taken over here. So we are glad we have our booth over here, which with any other questions that you have, we'll be glad to take it up. And as I said, this demo is just a teaser. There are much more complex things that can be managed. We have a host of GitHub repository CRDs, which gives you entire combinations that you can try out, like XDRs, making sure that you want to change some parameters. Those are all available. That's about it from my end. Thanks for listening in. Have a wonderful day.